Happy Saturday morning, all. Thank you for joining me today for our 27th episode of Saturday Morning Coffee. I'm Nolan, the lead writer of Dime Novel Adventures. Today we'll be reading through the June 2026 adventure, The Sixth Temple. If you're ready, I've got my coffee, so let's dive in. The Sixth Temple, June 2026. Venture into the Sixth Temple, the Varaxes, in this adventure for your favorite role-playing game. The Sixth Temple, a level 17 to 19 adventure, June 2026. Synopsis. The player characters will continue their journey through the shattering of masks by finding the Sixth Temple of the Varaxes and uncovering its secrets. Written by Flame Reptile. Edited by The One True AZ. Cartographer, the Silent Cartographer. Artists, the Noisy Artographer. Disclaimer. I thought there were only 5 temples to the Varaxes, and you're now telling me there's a 6th? And it's hidden? And on a different plane? And we have to visit the other 5 first? This is ridiculous. Special thanks to Dawn of Dune, The One True AZ, Flame Reptile, Portal Ripper, the Silent Cartographer, Garlic Man, the Angry Ginger, and the Webmaster. Thank you to the Lord, our God, for blessing us with the inspiration to keep going. Call to me and I will answer you, and will tell you about great and hidden things that you have not known. Jeremiah 33:3. Act 4, Chapter 2, Scene F. The Sixth Temple. The Sixth Temple. The Sixth Temple, the Temple of Silverax, dedicated to the Chromatic Queen's only female consort, is hidden amongst hills between the Hearthbraid forestlands and the southern reaches of Fioria. It was constructed during the Second Age of Elendor as one of the temples dedicated to the consorts of the Chromatic Queen, also known as the Varaxes. While most scholars of the cult of the Chromatic Queen believe the Chromatic Queen only had 5 Varaxes, thus only had 5 temples constructed, a 6th has existed in secret since the cult's founding. The 6th of the Varaxes, the Wish Dragon Silverfang, was a secretive 6th consort to the Chromatic Queen. The Temple of Silverax was constructed as a place of worship for the Chromatic Queen, as well as a home for Silverfang. However, it was only known to the highest ranking of the cult's inner faithful. It is unknown what kinds of rituals took place within the Temple of Silverax. When the cult was felled towards the end of the Second Age, and the other temples of the Varaxes were sacked, the Temple of Silverax remained hidden in plain sight, shrouded by illusions cast by Silverfang. Finding the Sixth Temple. Finding the Sixth Temple is as much of a task and adventure of itself as delving through it is. To find the Temple of Silverax, a creature must first combine all 5 chromatic keys found within the Temple of the Varaxes. Once combined, the keys will begin to pull the wielder towards the Temple of Silverax. Once within 120 feet of the Temple of Silverax, while holding the combined chromatic key, the combined chromatic key will cast aside the illusions that conceal the Temple of Silverax. Complete illusions. The Temple of Silverax is concealed beneath layers of powerful illusion magic. Without the combined chromatic key, a creature other than Silverfang, the Wish Dragon, cannot perceive, locate, or concisely interact with the temple in any way. A creature that passes through the temple's physical space simply emerges on the other side with no awareness that it crossed through the structure at all, as though the temple never existed. A creature that can peer into the ethereal plane will be able to see the temple, but will otherwise be unable to interact with it. After the Temple of Silverax has been revealed, a creature will still be unable to teleport in and out of the temple through the use of magic or abilities. The Temple of Silverax appears as much as the other temples to the Varaxes, as tall ziggurats built of stone, adorned with a pair of colossal stone doors set within its front. The doors to the Temple of Silverax possess 5 empty vertical slots located between the meeting point of both doors. The slots are the same size and shape as each of the chromatic keys. The doors to the Temple of Silverax are closed and locked, and are unable to be unlocked without disassembling the combined chromatic key and placing each piece within its corresponding slot in the following order from top to bottom: white, blue, black, red, and green. Once all 5 chromatic keys have been placed within the doors in the correct order, the doors to the Temple of Silverfang will open, splitting chromatic keys in 2. The temple will no longer disappear again until the temple doors have been closed and the chromatic keys have been removed. Disassembling the keys. Once the combined chromatic key has been disassembled, the magics it produced to reveal the Temple of Silverfang will begin to disappear. If the Temple of Silveraxe has been revealed 6 seconds after the combined chromatic key has been disassembled into the chromatic keys, the Temple of Silveraxe will disappear once again. Any chromatic keys placed within the slots on the doors will simply fall to the ground. The Wish Dragon Silverfang. The Wish Dragon, and 6th of the Varaxes, Silverfang, is the original and current resident of the Temple of Silveraxe, and the only creature present within this scene of the adventure. Silverfang will begin the scene of the adventure invisible atop the Temple of Silveraxe, observing the player characters. Once the player characters enter the Temple of Silveraxe, she will speak to them, first asking for them to leave in peace, then offering empty promises and veiled threats to the party if the party refuses. She will proudly exposit to the player characters of the purpose for each space of the temple the player characters enter, and glorify her chromatic queen before them. Silverfang prefers to strike deals with intruders rather than fight outright, but is a capable fighter should the need arise. She is unlikely to enter into direct combat, however, unless the player characters begin to loot or desecrate her temple. If the player characters begin to loot, destroy, or desecrate her temple, Silverfang will engage in conflict. However, she will tend towards using illusions and enchantments to harm her foes opposed to direct contact. General features. Unless otherwise specified, the floor and walls of this temple were constructed from stone blocks and flagstones. Ceilings. Ceilings within the 6th temple are 10 feet high unless noted otherwise. Light. The interior spaces of the 6th temple are dark unless otherwise noted. Iron braziers. Each of the iron braziers within the 6th temple have been cast in the shape of a 6-pointed star, with each arm being cast in the depiction of one of the Chromatic Queen's 6 consorts. Each brazier can be filled with normal fuel to produce a normal, non-magical flame. However, an empty brazier can be lit to produce a magical flame that flickers between the colors of the Chromatic Queen's consorts. While the non-magical flames produced in this way can be snuffed out through normal means, magical flames produced in this way can only be snuffed out through magical means. F1. Grand Foyer. The massive stone outer doors to the 6th temple open into its grand foyer. A vaulted ceiling stretching 30 feet high is supported by 6 towering pillars, each carved in the likeness of the 6 heads of the Chromatic Queen. The walls and ceiling are decorated with pristine mosaics. The walls depict humanoids and dragons alike kneeling before the colossal 6-headed Chromatic Queen, crowned by a flaming eclipsed moon and flanked by her 6 consorts. Depicted on the ceiling. A walking path of carved runes is framed into the floor of the grand foyer, leading to the Hall of Scales, F4, beyond. The runes, carved in the Draconic language, give testament to the coming of the Chromatic Queen. 4 iron braziers sit between the columns of the grand foyer, lit with magical fire that sheds light throughout this space, while iron censers, one mounted to each column, shed pungent burning incense below. F2, Confessional Chamber. Flanking one side of the grand foyer is the confessional chamber, an intimate space housing a single stone dais, flanked by 2 iron braziers. Magical fire from within the braziers casts this chamber in bright lights. The walls of this chamber are adorned with mosaic depictions of dragons bestowing blessings upon kneeling mortals, while the dais in its center is inscribed with draconic scripture concerning obedience and sacrifice. F3, Initiation Chamber. Flanking the opposite side of the grand foyer is the Initiation Chamber, an intimate space housing a single stone dais, flanked by 2 iron braziers. The braziers themselves remain unlit unless the rites inscribed upon the dais are read, initiating a new member into the cult. The walls of this chamber are adorned with mosaic depictions of supplicants, sacrificing wealth, weapons, and heretics before ascending into the ranks of the faithful. Iron rings and chains have been mounted above the dais in this chamber, and a small drainage hole has been carved at the base of the wall, into the dais, indicating some sort of bloodletting ritual might take place here. F4, Hall of Scales. The grand foyer opens into the Hall of Scales, a huge chamber with ceilings that vault 50 feet overhead. 4 thick stone columns, carved in the likeness of 3 dragons coiling their necks together, disappear into the vaulted ceiling they support. Iron censers, one mounted to each column, shed pungent burning incense below. Long rows of stone pews face towards the rear of the temple, towards the pulpit, F7, and the massive iron doors behind it. The walls of this chamber are adorned with mosaics depicting the histories of the chromatic queen, and are separated from the ceiling above by reliefs depicting the prophesied dragon storm. The vaulted ceiling depicts the tyranny that will be wrought upon Elendor by the coming of the chromatic queen. Suspended 50 feet above are 2 large braziers that shed light down into the pews below. Falling braziers. The braziers above are suspended by a thick iron chain, which is a construct that has an AC of 17 and 8 hit points. If the chain is reduced to 0 hit points, it breaks and the braziers fall to the floor below. Each creature in the space beneath a falling brazier must succeed on a DC 15 dexterity saving throw, or take 5d6 bludgeoning damage and be knocked prone. If the brazier is lit while it falls, each creature within 10 feet of the brazier when it lands must succeed on a DC 15 dexterity saving throw, or take 5d6 fire damage, as the burning contents within spill out. F5, Relic Chamber. Flanking one side of the Hall of Scales is the Relic Chamber, a wide space filled with treasures and artifacts valued by the faith. Wooden shelves line the walls of this chamber, each filled with a relic or artifact and protected by a thin pane of glass. Wooden exhibit stands fill the interior of this chamber, displaying ceremonial weapons, tomes, and draconic idols, all protected by framed glass boxes. Inscribed on copper plates mounted to each shelf or exhibit are names and brief descriptions of the objects on display. F6, Initiate Dormitories. Flanking the opposite side of the Hall of Scales is the Initiate Dormitories, a wide space lined with cots, bunks, and footlockers separated by gray curtains bearing the 6-pointed star of the Chromatic Queen. Unlike most other spaces within this temple, the walls of this chamber have been intentionally left as undecorated, plain stone. F7, Grand Pulpit. The Hall of Scales opens into the Grand Pulpit. A vaulted ceiling stretching 40 feet high is supported by 6 towering pillars, each carved in the likeness of the 6 heads of the Chromatic Queen. Iron censers, one mounted to each column, shed pungent burning incense below. The walls of the grand pulpit are adorned with colorful mosaics, with each tesserae being inscribed with the name of a powerful dragon the Chromatic Queen will call upon one day. Grand reliefs separate the walls from the vaulted ceiling above, depicting a continuous line of dragons following one another in flight. The vaulted ceiling above depicts the serenity of the land the Chromatic Queen came from, a flying island high above in the clouds, inhabited only by dragonkind. An elevated stone platform overlooks the Hall of Scales below, possessing large steps carved around its perimeter. A wooden pulpit, carved of delicate wood, sits atop the platform, flanked by 2 iron braziers lit with magical flames. Sitting at the base of the platform are 4 rows of stone pews dedicated to the most faithful worshippers. Behind the pulpit rests a pair of colossal stone doors carved to depict the 6-headed Chromatic Queen in its center, flanked by her 6 consorts, 3 on each door. Behind closed doors. The stone doors that separate the grand pulpit from the Hall of Tribulation are closed, massive, and heavy. A huge-sized creature may attempt to open these doors with a successful DC 18 Strength Athletics check. Gargantuan creatures automatically succeed on this check. F8, Chamber of Veils. Flanking one side of the grand pulpit is the Chamber of Veils, a chamber concealed by heavy, dark violet curtains. 8 columns carved in the depictions of high priests of the faith line the walls of this chamber, supporting a low vaulted ceiling 20 feet above. The walls and ceiling of this chamber have been left undecorated as plain stone. Mounted into the back wall of this chamber, resting atop the skulls of 6 adult dragons, one from each chromatic order, is a large sacrificial altar. F9, Vestment Descent Chamber. Tucked away behind a door near the back of this chamber, flanked by 2 columns, is the Vestment Descent Chamber. Tall wooden wardrobes, folded ceremonial robes, and shelves of incense, candles, and ritual supplies fill this chamber. Crates bearing the symbol of the Chromatic Queen are stacked neatly along the walls, beside racks of iron censers and unused brazier bowls awaiting transport to the temple's ceremonial halls. Hidden Lift. A creature that succeeds on a DC-18 intelligence investigation check will notice that the wardrobes at the back of this room can slide outwards, revealing a hidden lift. Lift. This chamber houses a massive iron and stone lift platform suspended by thick chains and ancient counterweights. The platform itself is engraved with draconic scales radiating outwards from a central point, adorned with a six-pointed star. A single lever set within the wall of the lift allows it to lower into F-18. F-10, Chamber of the Brood. Flanking the opposite side of the grand pulpit is the Chamber of the Brood. 8 columns line the walls of this chamber, carved with overlapping scale patterns, supporting a vaulted ceiling 20 feet above. The ceiling above depicts a colony of dragons nesting upon the clouds. 7 raised platforms occupy the spaces between the columns, offering private ritual and worship spaces. Iron censers, one mounted to each column, shed pungent burning incense below, covering the floor of this enclosed room in a cloud of smoke. F-11, Brood Guard Provision Chamber. Tucked away behind a door near the back of this chamber, flanked by 2 columns, is the Brood Guard Provision Chamber. Weapon racks, crates of preserved rations, bundles of spears, and sealed barrels of lamp oil are stacked in orderly rows throughout this heavy reinforced chamber. Hidden Lift. A creature that succeeds on a DC-18 intelligence investigation check will notice that the weapon racks at the back of this room can slide outwards, revealing a hidden lift. Lift. This chamber houses a massive iron and stone lift platform, suspended by thick chains and ancient counterweights. The platform itself is engraved with draconic scales, radiating outwards from a central point, adorned with a 6-pointed star. A single lever set within the wall of the lift allows it to lower into F-23. Hall of Tribulation. Beyond the colossal stone doors found within the grand pulpit is the Hall of Tribulation, a massive stone staircase that descends into the depths of the earth below. 2 smaller staircases, suitable for medium-sized creatures to traverse, flank colossal stone steps carved for massive creatures. The walls of the Halls of Tribulation are adorned in mosaic depictions of dragons descending from above upon kingdoms, burning them in their wakes. Ancient draconic scriptures are carved into the stone steps themselves, speaking of the return of the Chromatic Queen and the coming dragon storm. Massive reliefs separate the mosaic tiled walls from the ceiling with carvings of bulbous clouds, while the ceiling of this hall is painted to resemble the many forms of the Chromatic Queen floating through the astral sea. F-13, Vestibule of Reflection. At the base of the Hall of Tribulation rests the Vestibule of Reflection, a large rectangular vestibule terminating in another set of colossal stone doors. The doors themselves depict the 6-headed Chromatic Queen rising from the depths of the hells, breaking her chains and raising the world. An inscription carved around the perimeter of the doors reads, "When the storm devours the sky, the Chromatic Queen shall rise once more." F-14, Sanctum of Dominion. The Vestibule of Reflection opens into the Sanctum of Dominion, an immense ceremonial hall that displays the true grandeur of the cult of the Chromatic Queen. 16 massive stone columns, each carved in the likeness of the world trees, reach up into a vaulted ceiling 60 feet overhead. The ceiling itself, while vaulted, has been carved to represent the canopy of a great forest. Carved along the trunks of each column are tiny dragons, no larger than 1 foot long each. The bases of the columns sprawl out like the roots of trees, causing much of the floor of the sanctum to be uneven. Extending from the Vestibule of Reflection through the Sanctum of Dominion and to the base of Silverfang's throne is a smooth path carved between the stony roots. Large iron censers hang from each of the columns within this room, 2 on each side of each column, shedding pungent smoke from burning incense. The smoke drifts from the censers, masking the floor. 10 large iron braziers fill the spaces between many of the columns, shedding light throughout the sanctum with magical flames. The walls of this massive chamber are adorned with mosaics depicting lush, fertile land, beautiful blue skies, and creatures of all sorts living amongst one another. The mosaic columns and ceiling frame together around Silverfang's throne, F-15, to create a scene of reverence and power to the one who sits upon the throne. F-15, Silverfang's throne. Sitting within the farthest reaches of the Sanctum of Dominion rises a colossal stone platform, supporting a massive opalescent throne that overlooks the chamber below. Silverfang's throne. Silverfang's throne is formed from a single massive opal grown around the skeleton of an ancient dragon. It was created to comfortably accommodate the body of a great dragon, rather than any humanoid ruler, and it is worth tens of millions of gold. Due to its size, it is far too large to simply move Silverfang's throne. Silverfang's throne is an innately magical object and cannot be altered or damaged through normal means. Silverfang's hoard. Unlike most other dragons, Silverfang does not value simple gold, gemstones, or trinkets. Rather, the history of a location, an organization, or a culture. The entirety of the Temple of Silverfang is her hoard, containing the artifacts, relics, and histories of her queen and faith. F-16, Vault of Sacred Reagents. Hidden behind a concealed doorway lies a narrow vaulted chamber, lined with shelves of sealed jars, iron-bound chests, and carefully organized ritual implements. Strange powders, preserved organs, alchemical oils, incense bricks, and bundles of dried herbs are stored alongside dragon bones, vials of blood, and ceremonial tools used in the cult's most secretive rites. Hidden Chamber. The doorway to this chamber is concealed behind a carving of a priest holding their hands around an empty space. The opalescent key can be placed within this space to reveal and unlock the doorway. Branching from one side of the Sanctum of Dominion is the Dextral Hall, a long stone corridor adorned with mosaics depicting hooded clergy of the cult carrying censers, relics, and sacrificial offerings deeper into the temple. Shallow alcoves adorned with small braziers filled with magical flames cast light across this hall and its bare stone floor. The short vaulted ceilings above are carved with reliefs of dragons twisting around one another. F-18, Dextral Ascent Chamber. Flanking one side of the Dextral Hall is the Dextral Ascent Chamber. This chamber houses a massive iron and stone lift platform suspended by thick chains and ancient counterweights. The platform itself is engraved with draconic scales radiating outwards from a central point adorned with a six-pointed star. A single lever set within the wall of the lift allows it to raise into F9. F-19, Dextral Ritual Chamber. At the end of the Dextral Hall is the Dextral Ritual Chamber, a deep space with a ceiling that vaults to a deep point. Tiny holes can be found spaced every 6 inches along this point where air is sucked up from this chamber and released outside. The ceiling itself is painted with murals depicting the chromatic queen descending amidst storm clouds, trailed by hundreds of other dragons. 8 small columns set into the walls of this chamber frame 6 large basins set into the floor around the edges of this chamber. Attached to each basin are iron rings, chains, and shackles used to restrain victims of whatever rituals were once performed here. Runes etched into the rims of each basin describe the sixfold rites, a ritual in which the cult may sacrifice to the chromatic queen. F-20, Justiciar's Chamber. Flanking the opposite wall of the Dextral Hall is the Justiciar's Chamber. Weapon racks, armor stands, training dummies, and shelves filled with tomes on training and tactics line the walls of this chamber. A large war table adorned with a model of Elendor sits within the center of this chamber. Pieces painted like members of the cult are scattered about the model. A creature that succeeds on a DC 18 intelligence investigation check may recognize the positions of each of the pieces as events that have transpired throughout the course of this campaign, including the locations of the other 5 temples of the Viraxes and the location of the cult's stronghold. F-21, Vault of Sacred Relics. Hidden behind a concealed stone doorway lies a narrow vaulted chamber that houses a collection of sacred relics reserved for the cult's highest rites and ceremonies. Recessed alcoves display preserved dragon claws, ancient mask fragments, ceremonial crowns, and onyx reliquaries sealed with draconic scripture and iron chains. Hidden Chamber. The doorway to this chamber is concealed behind a carving of a priest holding their hands around an empty space. The opalescent key can be placed within this space to reveal and unlock the doorway. F-22, Sinistral Hall. Branching from the opposite side of the Sanctum of Dominion is the Sinistral Hall, a long stone corridor adorned with mosaics depicting hooded clergy of the cult carrying censers, relics, and sacrificial offerings deeper into the temple. Shallow alcoves adorned with small braziers filled with magical flames cast light across this hall and its bare stone floor. The short, vaulted ceilings above are carved with reliefs of dragons twisting around one another. F-23 Sinistral Ascent Chamber. This chamber houses a massive iron and stone lift platform suspended by thick chains and ancient counterweights. The platform itself is engraved with draconic scales radiating outwards from a central point, adorned with a six-pointed star. A single lever set within the wall of the lift allows it to raise into F11. F-24 Sinistral Ritual Chamber. At the end of the Sinistral Hall is the Sinistral Ritual Chamber, a deep space with a ceiling that vaults to a deep point. Tiny holes can be found spaced every 6 inches along the point where the air is sucked from outside and released into this chamber. Long stone work tables covered in carving tools, pigments, polishing cloths, and partially completed masks line one wall of this chamber. Shelves along the same wall display dozens of finished ceremonial visages, crafted from lacquered wood, bone, and ceramic, each in the shape of a dragon's head. Along the other wall rests a large kiln with an attached bellows that is hooked into a pottery wheel. This complex mechanism allows for the system to work in tandem together to produce spun and fired pottery. Tome of Masks. A creature that succeeds on a DC 21 Intelligence Investigation or Wisdom Perception check will notice that the kiln within the room has not been fired for quite some time. Within the kiln, wrapped in several layers of cloth, and buried beneath a pile of ashes and pottery fragments, is a tome of masks. F-25, Oracle's Chamber. Flanking the opposite side of the Sinistral Hall is the Oracle's Chamber. Tall bookshelves, celestial charts, and wooden lecterns line the walls of this chamber. A large stone platform rests at the center of this chamber, with 6 iron braziers surrounding it. A creature that succeeds on a DC 21 Intelligence Arcana check will recognize that this platform is used to perform rituals. Based on a tome that is open on a nearby lectern, the ritual involves extracting the blood from 6 humanoid creatures in the Dextral Ritual Chamber and combining it with a drop of true dragon blood to turn a creature into a half-dragon. This adventure features 1 massive 2-paged map and 1 new monster stat block, and 1 new magic item. Into the Sixth Temple. Venture into the Sixth Temple of the Varaxes and discover the true purpose behind the others. See a temple as it was originally designed, before the cult was raided at the end of the Second Age, and interact with its original inhabitant. Come face to face with a true wish dragon and determine if it is a friend that will leave you be, or a foe that will make all of your wishes come true. A level 17 to 19 adventure for a party of 3 to 6 adventurers, an adventure for use with your favorite fantasy role-playing game. That was the June 2026 adventure, The Sixth Temple. Let us know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you like this adventure, you can find it and many more in our shop on our website at dimenoveladventures.com. While you're there, you should subscribe to our newsletter for weekly updates on our products and projects, and join our growing Discord community. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel to see more like this, and let the algorithm know that we're doing all right. But most importantly, remember to make your weeks adventurous. Have a good week.